Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So for 100 days challenge, today is day 9 and we're introducing CSS today. We've been doing a bit of CSS just to help us work with our HTML files, but today we're going to dive right into CSS. We're going to be looking at what CSS is all about, look at selector, declarators, and then we'll also into the syntax of CSS, look at comments in CSS, and colors in CSS, and if time permits, then we're going to look at margin also in CSS and borders. Okay, so welcome back to my YouTube channel, and if you're just coming across my video for the first time, kindly subscribe. If you enjoyed the video, leave a comment, like and share, and God bless you. Okay, my guys, let's go. We are doing CSS today, like I said in our last class. So we've been doing a bit of CSS, starting from the inline CSS to internal CSS, and then do a bit of external CSS when we're trying to style our nav bar. But today we're going to dive into CSS. Now, what is CSS? CSS is Cascading Style Sheet. Cascading Style Sheet. So the C stands for cascading, the X stands for style, and the other S stands for sheet. So Cascading Style Sheets, that's the meaning of CSS. Okay, we already created a CSS file here the other day, but I think I will just delete this and then we create a CSS file again, just to make sure we are starting everything from the beginning. Okay, so before then, I just want us to generate a boilerplate, exclamation mark, and hit enter to generate a boilerplate. And here, let's change our title to 100 days. 100 days coding. All right. And let's go ahead and create a CSS file. So how do we create a CSS file? We go to File, and then we tap on it. Then we'll give it the name style.css. So like I told us the last time, when you start creating bulk, start developing bulk apps, you might not just have styles or CSS. You can have like about.css. You can have contact.css and a whole lot. But make sure that the extension is always .css, because this is the only way that the browser will understand that this is a style sheet. It has to end with CSS, and if it's going to be HTML, then it has to end with HTML. If it's JavaScript, it has to end with JS. If it's PHP, it has to end with PHP. All right, guys. I hope that's clear. So always make sure that your extension for CSS is .css. All right. So now we've created our CSS file. The next thing we'll do is to link our CSS file to our HTML file. But before that, let's see the 3 types of CSS. So we said number 1, we have internal CSS. Number 2, we have inline. And then number 3, we have external CSS. So let's see. Let's just leave a comment here. Okay, so you remember this, yeah? Comments. So just to make sure that the browser doesn't read this as code, so we just comment that out. So we have internal CSS, we have inline CSS, and then we have external CSS. So let's start with the internal CSS. Let's have h1 tag just like this. H1 just like this, and let's just say this is a heading. Okay, and let's have a p tag, and let's just generate test. Okay, Okay, just something like this. But let's bring our live preview so that we are able to see what we are doing. Okay, yeah. So here we can use our internal CSS. And how do we use our internal CSS? First, we'll go to the edge section of our code, and then here we're going to call for style sheets. All right, and just open a style sheet like this, and here we can style whatever we have here in our HTML. We can style it here at the head section of our HTML. So this is what we call internal CSS. So for the H1, we can style the H1 tag just the way it is. We can style the H1 tag here and give it a color of red, something like that. And we can give it a margin of, let's say, 50 px, something like that. And you know, so we can just play around with our H1 tag. We can also create for the P tag and just say maybe background color. Let's give a background color of light blue, something like that. Okay, so this is what we refer to as internal CSS. But let's also see inline CSS. Okay, so inline CSS basically is you writing your style in the edge, the opening tag of your code. So here we have to generate style, and from here we can say, let's give it background color here. For the H1, we can give a background color and say let the background color be light blue. All right, so this is what we refer to as inline CSS. So here you can write your CSS just inside the tag, the HTML tag. You don't need to go anywhere to write it. So the P tag, we can also write our CSS style here and give it a color of white. So let's give it white. So you see our text has changed to white. So this is how you can write your inline CSS. You can also write your internal CSS at the S section of your code. Okay, I hope that is clear now. So I'm just going to take this off. Because today we're going to be using the external CSS. That is the one that is recommended for us, external CSS. And because we commented this section out, you see that it's not visible on the browser. Okay, so let's go ahead and create. We already created a CSS file. So let's say we can start writing our code using CSS file. Okay, so the next thing I want us to know, knowing that we have three styles we can use to write our code, CSS styles. We have the internal CSS, we have external CSS, and then we have the inline CSS. All right. So the next thing I want us to know is CSS syntax. CSS syntax. So here we can just write something and say P, and then we'll open the curly braces. And between the opening and closing curly braces, we can then write our code. So here I can just say something like color, and then I can give it a color. Okay, I can give it a color, maybe color black, something like this. Okay, so let's now look at this syntax. Let's look at this syntax. So here, the P here in this case is our selector P. All right, so the P is our selector. So we are picking it from HTML. So this is our HTML selector. We are picking an item from HTML to style. All right, so the P is our selector. And then the color here and black it's our declaration. It's our declaration. So we are saying that we are declaring that this guy, we are giving you something black, okay? And then here, under our declaration, so we have the selector, we have the declaration. Under our declaration, here, we have the property, and here is the value of the property. So the property can be font size, font height, font display, background color, margin top, margin left, borders, radius. All that falls under property of the declaration. We can also have value like the colors, black, white, red. We can have a radius like 8 pieces. We can have font size like 50 pieces. All those are called the value of the property. But this guy and this guy together, they are called declaration, and this guy is called the selector. So these are the basic syntax of HTML, of CSS, sorry. Now for CSS, once you have your selector, you need to open your double curly braces, the opening and closing curly braces. And just after opening your curly braces, the next thing you need to open to check is the property. So you come with the property, what am I trying to style? And then after the property, your column. And after your column, your value, and then you always end every CSS file with a semicolon. So this is how the CSS syntax look like. A selector, the curly braces, opening and closing curly braces, your property, your column, and then the value of the property, then your semicolon. This is the basic syntax of CSS. Okay, let's move on. So basically CSS is just used to find HTML elements to style, right? So we use it to find HTML element. So for instance, let's go ahead and find an HTML element to style, and let's give this one H2, and let's say this is my second heading, okay? So if we're going to style, we're going to look for H2. So here we'll find H2, and let's style H2. We'll say color black, but you see that it's not going to appear. It's already black, so let's say color blue, but it won't change. Color blue, it will change. Why? Who knows? Who knows? Why? Simply because we've not linked our CSS file to our HTML file. Now, before we can use our CSS file to style our HTML file, we must connect, we must link our CSS file to our HTML file. How do we do that? We just come to the head tag. I love to put it before the title. You know, it's just a preference. So come to our head tag, and then we're going to have link. Okay, so link, and the relationship is style sheet. The href is pointing to the file name, which is styles.css. So if we're to have about.css, then our href will be pointing to about.css. But here we have styles.css, which is correct. So now you can see that our text color automatically have changed to blue. Oh, now I am connected. I can see this file now. I am connected. So basically, this is how you can connect your HTML file to your CSS, and you can use your external CSS to style your HTML file. Okay, now let's move on pretty soon, and let's look at, you know, just basic selectors we use in HTML and CSS. Okay, so basic selectors. So the first selector, let me just add it here to the comment. The first selector we'll look at is star. The second selector we'll look at is the period or full stop, and then we'll also look at the hash selector, and then we can also look at groups. All right, guys, please pay good attention here. Now, this selector, it's a universal selector that just pick the whole web page and tell the web page that, hey, I want you to do this, and I want it to be applied to the whole web page. I want whatever I want you to do, I want it to be applied to the whole web page. So this is a universal selector that selects the whole web page to style. All right. So for instance, if we use that universal selector now and say, now just pay attention and then look at our preview and see what's going to happen. So we're going to say margin, and we're just going to say margin it's 0. You see, automatically our web page has changed, because by default the web page comes with default margin values. So by saying star and then giving it margin, automatically it takes off the margin of the website. So this, whatever you do with the star, affects the entire website. The entire website, okay? It affects the entire website. So you must always know what you want to do so that it does not affect what you don't want it to affect. Most times, what you use this for is maybe just the fonts, no, just the margin and padding, just removing the margin and the default padding, default margin and default padding, okay? And the next one is the period sign. I've introduced this to us before. This is for classes. So if I have an HTML tag element here, and let's say this is, let me call it main, and let me just, no, so let's just, let me just create a paragraph and say this is a paragraph, just like this. So here at the end, the opening p tag, I will give this a class name and call this p1. Okay, so let me just copy this and then I will use this for ID and paste, and here I'll give this ID, and let me just, I can call it P1 too, but let me just P2. Okay. So here we have class, and the class name is P1. So using our period, we can style our class. So without a period, then the CSS wouldn't know what you're talking about. There will be no effect on whatever you're doing. So here, if I come here and I want to style that p tag, which is p1, I'll have to say full stop, and I will call p1 before I will open my curly braces. So here, if I add, let's add margin, I'll just add margin right and say 30 ps, and add margin left and still give it 30 ps, something like this. So you see, we only have this guy shift because we are using P1 to style, and P1 it's actually targeting this guy. And before the P1 we have the period sign, which lets you know that this is a class. What if you want to style an ID? An ID styling, you use the hash sign. So we want to style ID, we'll use the hash sign. So here we can say hash and then P2, and then we can style this. So let's see how we can do that. So here we will say hash, we say P2, and here we can just give it a color and say, let's give it a color somewhat like this. So you see, this guy has also changed, the color has changed. We can also add margin. So let's add margin top, and let's just say 10 ps, something like that. So this is how you can style your ID. So ID is represented by the hash sign, class is represented by the period sign, and then the entire website is represented by the star sign. So what you can do is simply knowing what you are styling. So if you are styling for an ID, once you have an ID, you know that is a hash sign that will precede the name of the ID, in this case, which is P2. And if you are styling for a class, you know that is a period sign that will precede the name of the ID, in this case is P1. I hope that is clear thus far. Another thing I want us to look at is group styling. So group styling can also be very helpful when you're trying to just target a few things and then give them the same styling. For instance, let's say we have let me remove this styling here, the inline styling. So let's say we have H1 and let's have H2, this is a heading, and let's have H3, this is a heading, let's have H4, this is a heading. Okay, so we are good like that. So have H2, H3, so we are just going to remove all this styling for this. I think that should be H1, I guess. So let's remove that styling. Great. So here we're going to group our H1. I hope there's no styling anywhere right now. Okay, apart from this P tag. So let's also just remove this. Okay, so we're going to group our P tag, or let's just say H1, H2, H3, and H4. We'll group them and we'll style them. So here we'll say H1, comma, H2, so you have to give the comma, H3, comma, H4. So we are styling everything together. So let's say color, and let's give it any color here. Right, so here you see it picks all the H1, H2, H3, H4 tags and just style. So this is how you can group and style at the same time. This is how you can group and style at the same time. Okay, so you can just group several items together and style them to give you that speed you are looking for to work on your website. Okay, I believe that is clear. So the next thing we are going to look at is comments. We're going to look at comments in CSS. Just like we have comments in HTML, we can also have comments in CSS, just to let you know, or maybe a team member know, what exactly this code or this section of code is all about. So comments in CSS. So we can put our comments anywhere, we can put our comment just anywhere, the bottom, the top, in line with CSS styles and all that. We can put our comments anywhere. So how do you write comments in CSS? You use a backward slash, you use your star sign, and then you can write your comment. So I'll just say this is a comment. All right, and then once you are done, you need to take your star sign, and then your backward slash back. So this is how you can style you can comment in CSS. This is how you can comment in CSS. So this is actually just a one-line comment. You can also have like a group comment on or sentence comment, as you also can call it, where you can have this guy sit. So this guy, let's just cut this guy out, and here we can just have some stuff here. So let's just add pure CSS stuff here, and here So we can have something like this, and we will just comment this out. Maybe you are trying to debug our file, so we can just comment this out. So from here down, we can start writing a proper CSS. Right, so let's even say that we want to write comment inline. So color, let me just give this blue, something like this. So we can still write a comment inline, something like this. So after this guy, we can decide, oh, this guy is supposed to be for something. So let's just comment so that we know that this guy is for something. So we just say H1 for index 0 section, something like this, and then we can close our comments. So this does not affect our styling, but it's just letting us know that, okay, this is what this thing is all about. So comments can be very useful when you're working with a team and you are trying to make sure that this person doesn't miss anything. So you can just put in comments so that when the person carries the code, the person doesn't need to go do too much. They can just go through the comment and see, okay, this is what this is all about. This is what this is. Because it can be very daunting when you have lots of code and you're trying to look for just one particular thing. And this is also good for you. Even if you're working alone, you need to comment. So just put up comments and see. So each of your session, Euro session, footer session, contact session, just put your comment and write something about it. It makes sense. It makes it easy for you to even debug your code when you want to debug your code. All right, guys. So this is how you can write comments in CSS. A backward slash followed by a star sign, and then write your comment and then close it with star and backward slash. So this is just like turning it upside down from this. All right. So guys, that is how you can write comments in CSS. So what are we looking at next? The next we're going to be looking at, we'll look at colors in CSS. Colors in CSS. We have lots of colors, and this we beautify your website. So you need to study this. It will help you. It will help to beautify your website. So you need to study colors and CSS. Okay, so let's look at our colors. We have solid colors, we have the RGB colors, we have the hexagonal colors, and we have HXL. I don't talk about HXL as much because I don't like it. I don't use it at all. I use RGB, I use solid colors, and then I use hexagonal colors, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. But you can, just know that we have other colors like I mentioned. So we have solid colors in CSS, we have RGB, we have hexa, and then we have or X like we call it, and we have HSL. All right, but like I say, I hardly talk about this guy. It's almost the same with this guy and this guy, but I am more conversant with using these other guys. But let's see what colors can do for us in HTML. Let's take this off. Okay, so solid colors. So let's go ahead. I want to give I don't know which one is H2, but let's just call H2 and style H2. Okay, so H2, I just want to give H2 border of 2 pairs. Okay, 2 pairs. Border color tomato. Okay, I don't know which one is H2 here. So let me just do this so that I see what we are doing. So here H2, let me just give it Okay. Something looks funny. Oh, yeah. There's no property. So border, there's no property here. So 2ps. Sometimes these things can be funny. Solid blue. Okay. Yep. So here we can use a solid color. All right, we can use a solid color to showcase this. Okay, but we can also use RGB color. And like I said the last time, the arrow there is for red, the G is for green, and the B is for blue. The arrow is red, the G is green, and the B is blue. So if I'm going to write RGB here, what we can do is to write, okay, so let's just use the solid blue. Now if you look up here, you can see that the RGB color of this blue is 00255. 00255. Because why is it 00255? So RGB 00255. This is blue. So if this is going to be red, your guess is as good as mine. So this is going to be RGB, and this is going to be 255, then 00, right? So if we come here and say RGB, and we say 255, zero, we should have red, right? We should have red. So if we have, let's go ahead and have 255 here, and also have 255 here, right? So this is 255, 255, 255. So this is white. So if we're going to have black, what are we supposed to have? 0, 0, 0. So from white to black is from 255 to 000. If we're going to have green, then it has to be 255. Sorry, it has to be 0, then 255 and 0, 255. So this will give us green, somewhat like this. All right, so this is how RGB works. And then the beauty of RGB is that you can actually just pick up a color and then move around, or you can just move your cursor around and pick up whatever color you want to pick up, and then RGB will give you that particular color. Now, one beautiful thing I love about RGB, let me give this a background color. Let me give it the background color, and let me say the background color is going to be black. All right. Now, with RGB, if this background is black, I can do something. I can give it an opacity. So I can just include an opacity here and say 0.5, something like that. So it reduces the shade of the black with this. So this is just trying to reduce. So if I say 0.1, you see that it's very faint. If I say 0.2, it increases. So from 1 to 0.1. Okay, so I can just give it an opacity this way using the RGB color, which I love so much, about this RGB. So I can just include my opacity rather than going to write opacity and give it an opacity. I can just include my opacity here in the color, in the styling, using the RGB, and it works perfectly for me. All right, so this is one beautiful thing about RGB. So one thing you need to know is that RGB numbers range from 0 to 255. 0 to 255. So you can have any number from 0 to 150 to 255. All right, that is RGB for you. The next color we'll look at is going to be the hexagonal color. The hexagonal color, hexagonal. So I'm sure you've seen something like this once in a while, hash FF. I'm sure you've seen something like this, or hash 000000, something like this. So this it's called hexagonal color. So let's see how we can work with hexagonal color. We're going to remove the RGB here, and let me just add hash background color 00000. Okay, so this is black 000, and then let's make the text white. So here we're just going to give color, that's the text, and let's give it white. Okay, so just like we have with RGB, we can also play around with our hexagonal color. So if I have FF and I have 0000, automatically it's going to be red. So it's the same thing like RGB. So the first two numbers represent red, the second middle numbers represent green, and then the last represent blue. So if we say 00FF00, that is green, and if we say 0000FF, that's blue. Okay, basically this is how colors work in CSS. So you can play around with it. We can decide to give this a background color, so we can just say body, and then we see background, and then we can give it a complete background color, and let's say this is going to be complete red. So FF, just all the FF, and give it a background color. Okay, so we can just play around with our colors. I didn't see this. Oh, sorry, this is white. FFF is white, so we can't see it. It's not visible. It has to be FF000, FF0000. Yeah, something like that. Yep. Okay, so this is how we can just play around with colors in CSS. I just thought I should bring it out there. So just note that in CSS you can use either your solid colors, your hexagonal colors, HSL, or your RGB colors. Like I said, I hardly use HSL, but you can look that up if it's something that you might love to use, but I prefer using RGB or hexagonal colors or solid colors, as the case may be. So like I said, you can add opacity. You can add opacity to your color using RGB, just to make sure that it gives you that feel of that faint feel, right? Okay, so I would love us to talk about background color, but we've done that several times, using a few examples that we've used already. We've done background color. So background color basically is just to have a color at the background of your text, your div, your header, the entire website. So that is background color. So how to just add your background color. Okay, the next thing I want us to look at is background image. So you can also add a background image to your website. So let's say we have a div. So let's create one div and then add a background image to the div, or a section. Let's enclose everything here in a section. So let's create a section. And let's create some, I think this is okay. So let's just give this a class name of section 1 or Euro section, anyone. So let's give it a name as section 1. And here we can style our section 1. So meaning everything here is inside inside the section, this section. So we can style this. So if we want to call it, now we're going to use full stop and then section. You have to make sure you type it correctly. Section 1. Okay, here let's just try background color and see if it's going to apply. Background color. Okay, beautiful. It applies. So what we can do now is to add the background image. So background image. We're going to add the background image here. So we're going to use our URL to add a background image. Okay. So here we have to go and look for where our image is. So our image is inside the image folder, and let's add this first image. I don't know what that image is. Okay, somewhat like that. That is what the image is. So this is the syntax to add the background image. I have to remove this and explain this again. So we want to add a background image to our section. Remember, everything here is inside the section now. Everything we are seeing here is inside the section. So here we're going to use the URL. So the URL is just going to locate where our image is, and then we're going to target where is our image. Our image is inside the images folder. So first we have to target the images folder. Once we target the images folder, it will open and then it will show us all the content inside the images folder. Here we have just 2 images inside the images folder. So we can then pick our image we want to use for the background. So here we'll pick this image, and you see that the image has been applied to our background. So that is how to add image to your background, and this is the best way to add image rather than using HTML. Like when we're trying to learn HTML, we use HTML to add image, but the best way to add image is actually through CSS. It allows you for styling. It's very responsive when you use CSS. I'm not saying it's not responsive when you use HTML, but it's recommended. It's recommended. It's the best way you can add images to your web pages. As you start working, you will see why it is the recommended way of adding images. All right. Now we have a few attributes that you can add to your background image. You can add stuff like background repeats. Sorry, let's add a semicolon here. You can add stuff like background repeat. You can add stuff like background position. You can add stuff like margin, just to make sure that your image is sitting properly, is sitting well. So sometimes you want to add you add an image and you see that the image is splitted. So let's try the second image. I think that should give us this particular example. The 5 icon, let's see. Good. So you see that we have this image 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just like that. But if we don't want to have it like that, then we can use something called background repeat. Okay, we're going to set it to background repeat, and here we can say none. So if we say none, background repeat none, it means we don't want it to repeat itself. We don't want this image to repeat itself. Okay, so we can set we have different values we can use for background repeat. We can set the y-axis, we can set the x-axis, we can set. So the x-axis is actually for horizontal repeat, the y-axis is for vertical repeat, and then the no repeat says we don't want this image to repeat. So no repeat means the image is just going to give us one image like that. Okay, so we can also set the background position of the image. Where do we want the image to be positioned? So background position. Okay, so we need to add a semicolon. Always remember, very important. So let's add a background position. So we can set the background position to either top left, bottom, center. So we can, set bottom or bottom left. Bottom left or bottom right. You can just play around with the position, to get the image where you want it to be. All right, so here I will just change this image. I want us to have the other image, so let's change this image to the other image that we have, which is this particular image. Okay, and let me remove the background position. So here we have our image. So that is how you can set your image. Or like I say, you can also add other attributes to your image. So we can also add fish. We can also add screw. So we're able to fish or screw our image. So background attachment. So background attachment, if we say fish, that means the image is going to be fish. We can't scroll the image. If we say scroll, then if you have more than this particular text, so let's just do something. I will just generate some lorem ipsum. So p tag, and let's generate lorem, and let's generate maybe another lorem. So lorem will just generate some text layer for us. So here we have okay, still within the text, the size of this. So when you have a lot of images, a lot of data here, this image is going to screw. Okay, so let's just not waste time there. But you can also set it to fish. If you set it to fish, it means that it's not going to screw at all. It's just going to be in a fish position. All right, so you can set the background attachment to fish, or you can send it to scroll, and then you see that it will be able to scroll down. Okay, so let's just set our color to white, so that we're able to see the content. And let's do padding to like 15 ps. Okay, so that we'll have, you know, this padding, so that it's not close to the wall. Okay, don't worry, we'll get to all this. We'll explain all this and you will understand all this. CSS is interesting, but you need to pay good attention. So the next thing we're going to look at, which will be probably the last thing we'll be looking at, will be borders. I've done a bit on borders, but let's do borders proper. So borders, we're going to use any of these. So we'll use any, we have, maybe we'll use a P1, the paragraph P1. Yeah, that's a class P1. Let's use P1. So full stop and P1 because it's a class. All right, so here we're going to add borders. So have different borders we can add. We have the solid borders, the dotted borders, the groove, the double, insert, hidden. We have different borders we can add to our elements. Okay, so we have border style. So border style, and then we can give it a style. So let's say this border style, we want to give it dotted. So we'll have dotted lines around our border. So we can also give it a width, and so okay, this border we want it to have so width. So we're going to say border width, and here let's increase it from the default 1 pixels to like 5 ps, something like that. So you see the thickness now. We can give it border color and decide that no, we don't want this to be white, you know, we want it to be a different color. So we can give it like aqua, and then we change the border color to aqua. So this is basically how you can walk around borders. So we can change it from dotted to solid. So we'll have a solid line, somewhat like that. We can change it from solid to dash. So we'll have something like this. We can change it from dash. We can also change it to double. So So we'll have double line. So you can just play around with your borders the way you like. And then you can also add padding to your borders. Maybe you want, to have a bit of padding and all that. So you can add border padding to it. Okay. Now, we can add border just to the top. So we don't want to border everywhere. We can add border just to the top. So we can just say border top rather than adding the whole border. We can just say border top and then we'll have border top. Or we can say border bottom and we'll have the border bottom. Okay. We can decide, to have different width for different border style. Different width for different. So we can say, okay, for the top and the bottom we need to have two pairs. For the left and right we need to have 2 pairs. So we can just play around with our border. So let's see what we can do. So we can say border bottom, and then we can give it let's give it solid, and then we can also give it border width for the bottom. And let's make it 5 pairs, somewhat like that. So we can also have border top. We can also have border top, and let's make this maybe double, and we can also increase the width and all that. So you can just play around with your border. You can just play around with your border. So one thing I want us to know is that let's have a border for everything, not border bottom, so that I can explain this. So have border and it's solid. So here we can say 5 pairs, and then we add here 2 pairs. Now pay attention. You can see that the bottom and the top is 5 pairs. The left and right is 2 pairs. So when you are working with borders or anything that have 4 sides in CSS, note that the top, so it's always top, right, bottom, and left. So it's always like this. It's always like this. So if we give any value, let's say we give 5 here, that means this is going to be this 5. It starts from the top. So this 5 is for the top and the bottom. This 2 is for the right and the left. But if we say, okay, we just want to give this, let me leave this for now. We want to give this 4 different sizes. So everyone should be on the set. So that means this is going to represent the top. This is going to then represent the right. Then we'll have another one that will represent the bottom. So if we say 3 pairs now, it's going to then be for the bottom. Or if we say 0 pairs, it's going to be for the bottom. Okay? And then we can then say maybe 10 pairs for the left. So you see here we have 10 pairs, we have 5 pairs, we have 2 pairs, and we have 0 pairs. So the 0 here represents the bottom. So this is how it works. So if you see here, you see that this 5 pairs is for top, 2 pairs is for right, which is this, 0 pairs is for bottom, which is this, and then the 10 pairs is for left, which is this. So it goes from top to right to bottom and then to left. But if you are using just 2 sizes, know that the first one is going to be for the top and the bottom. The second one is going to be for the right and the left. I thought I should put this out there so that when we are working, we know how we can manage this. So sometimes you don't want to have a border bottom, you want to just have, or you don't want to have a border top, you want to have border bottom, left, and right. So we can just do that. No border top, so we can just say top is going to be 0 PS, and then we're going to have top 0 PS, then right 2 PS, then bottom 5 PS, and left 2 PS. 2 PS. So we can have something like this. All right, so the top is empty, the left and right is 2 PS, the bottom is 5 PS. So this is how you can work with your borders, and then you can give it border color, any color you want, and just play around with your borders. This has been a very long class. I would have loved to go on and on and on and on, but I think we should call it a day here and continue in our next session. All right, guys. I want to ask us a simple favor. This is going to help you. Try to do an external linking to your HTML file using CSS. All right, using CSS. And then from your HTML file, create a session, maybe a Euro session or any session, but just create a session and have about 4 header tags, maybe from H1 to H4, 4 header tags, and have 2 paragraph tags. So that's 4 header tags, 2 paragraph tags. And then in your CSS, add an image to that session, to the entire session, add an image to it. And then add border right, bottom, and left to the section, to that same section, and give it a color of red. Now, make sure that your image is such a way that your text is transparent enough for us to see. If we cannot see it, then change the text color, the font color, and then do a screenshot and send to me in the comment section. Let me see what you've done. So you're going to attach an external CSS style sheet, create a session, and in that session, you're going to give us 4 header tags, give us 2 paragraph tags, and then in your CSS, link an image to it, give that image, that session image, give it a border of left, right, and bottom, and then make sure that your text it's readable. Do a screenshot and send it to the comment section. Let me see that you are following. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you've not. Leave a comment, leave a like. See you in our next video. Bye.